Hello and welcome to Talking Point. The government unveiled a bold $20.5 billion budget this week to save jobs, keep businesses afloat and help Singaporeans see through a period of exceptional difficulty.
More help is on the way for low-income families. $2.6 billion have been set aside to support households this year, with a slew of measures such as additional GST credits, rental and tax rebates.
There are also targeted measures to help the most vulnerable. But are these measures enough to help Singaporeans tide through its worst recession since 1965? What else can be done so that those who are most in need don't fall through the safety net?
We have in the studio today Dr. Amy Khor, Mayor of Southwest Community Development Council and Chairman of Feedback Unit REACH, and social worker Samuel Ng, who runs the Marine Parade Family Service Centre. Welcome to the show. Let me just start quickly by asking, it's now a couple of days since the budget was announced. I'm sure you all must be getting all kinds of reactions, the good, the bad, and maybe the ugly too. What has it been like?
Well, since the budget was announced, we have had more than 200 feedback via our different channels, SMS, discussion threads and so on. Basically, I would say that the reactions have been quite positive. In fact, I think about a third actually said that, the budget was generous. Some actually said it was innovative, creative. People generally welcome the job credit scheme, for instance, because, they say that it really helps to put cash into the hands of the businesses to help them cope with, meet costs, cope with the current crisis. Of course, I've also had a sizable number of people who feedback to say that, well, perhaps the government could be more generous.
Something like 35%, right? Disagreed that the budget has adequate support for families.
Probably
and
about another third or so,
yes.
But depending on whether it's a poll or through SMSs and so on.
What kind of suggestions did they come?
Well, one of the feedback was that perhaps the 20% personal income tax rebate could have been more generous because they felt that that's exactly the same figure that was given last year when the economy was in much better shape. But we had also good response in terms of the doubling of the GST credit. So people actually welcome the fact that, this will really help them cope with the downturn.
What about Samuel? What's your...
I guess the response would depend on which segment of within our community. If you are looking at the lower income, of course, the lower income, they will always feel that it's not good enough. For example, the increase of $30 for the PA recipients, and particularly targeting at the single. So some says, what can the increase in $30 helps and things like that. So I think there are a lot of more kind of micro or technical kind of feelings that people are feedbacking.
Some of the feedback we got from the middle income is that they felt that while the budget helped businesses and helped the low income, there was not much for the middle income. Do you think this is really right, or is there a perception gap here?
Well, I think when you look at the budget measures, you should look at it in totality, not just that particular part that says, direct assistance to households. You really should look at it in totality. Yes. And the key of this budget really is about helping businesses to retain the workers, saving jobs. And the bulk of the budget in that sense, more than half, is really aimed at helping businesses to retain workers by meeting costs, strengthening their cash flow, getting access to credit and enhancing their competitiveness. That will help us to save jobs. And I think that there's no better way to help households, all households, whether they are low income or middle income, to cope with the crisis by having a job so that they can continue to provide for their families.
What happens to those people who still might lose their jobs? Because the job credits that are given to the employers, there is no guarantee or no assurance that I will receive the job credits and I will keep the employees.
Well, there's assurance that the employer will get the job credits, but obviously whether that will help to encourage the employers to retain workers is another issue. But we think that with the package of measures, it is not just the job credit scheme, it is also the special risk initiative, risk sharing initiative, it's also about spurs, it's also about the top up to the workfare income supplement and so on. I think that will be a good incentive to encourage companies to help retain workers. After all, it is also for their long-term benefit, because then they will be more prepared when the economy recovers to take advantage of the opportunity.
But a point to note about this job thing is, I think while it is good, but if you're not the employers, for example, I'm just, we're talking about commoners, yes. Our feedback or our feel at the ground as a social worker, or I check with many family service centers, for example, strangely, at this point in time, we don't see an influx of people, coming to FSCs for financial assistance. The figures have been quite constant. Then I was thinking, perhaps one of the possible reasons is because the wave is really not here yet. We hasn't hit the really down under as yet. So we are not seeing that suddenly, all of a sudden, a lot of people are retrenched. So these retrenched people come and seek help and all this. So perhaps, that people are still not feeling, that hit at this present moment.
So the feedback you've gotten from them, people on the ground, what has the feedback been to this budget? Are they happy with it, or they feel that there's nothing in it for them?
So for example, those parts that pertaining to the businesses and all this, for a lot of households, they feel that, because it's more indirect, while they appreciate, for example, if I'm working, then I appreciate it. Other than that, people will just feel that, that's nothing to do with me. See, what they're more interested are the rebates, how much, the income tax, the more individual.
Actually, to the contrary, I would say that for CDC, because we look after a much bigger population than, say, the FSCs, over the last 3 months of last year, we have already seen a significant increase in the number of applications for social assistance by about 30%, in the number of applications for employment assistance by about 42%. In fact, over the last 4 months, it was like 50% increase in the number of applications for employment assistance. So I think that the impact of the financial meltdown is slowly but surely, trickling down into the community. And let me say that whilst it is true for people who are retrenched, they may say that, well, job credit doesn't help me. There are many assistance schemes available. So job credit and spur and so on is to help retain as many workers as possible, keep them, help them keep their jobs. But for those who are retrenched, we have got additional schemes to help them. These not just the schemes that have been announced in the budget in terms of GST credit and so on. Those are more broad-based help, of course, more targeted to the lower income. But when they are out of work, we have other schemes under National Comcare, work support schemes and so on that will help them.
Hold that thought there, because we're going to go for a break and we'll speak about budget measures to help and other measures to help low-income workers when we return.